Note that best is a very subjective term, so we're just going to share what we think are some good options to consider. Okay, let's get into it.
Today we're talking about which saxophone is best for beginners. Before we talk about specific brands and models of saxophones, we're going to talk about choosing alto versus tenor. So if you haven't decided whether you're going to play alto or tenor, listen to this part. Otherwise, you can skip ahead to where we talk about specific saxophones that we recommend. So when deciding whether you're going to play alto or tenor, here are some factors to consider. Part of it is going to come down to just what you like. The sound of the tenor versus the alto, and we'll list a few artists you can listen to in the description to see what the differences are in sound. But from some logistical aspects, the alto is what most people start on, and it is smaller than the tenor saxophone. So sometimes that makes it a bit easier for people in terms of the amount of air needed. The alto also weighs a lot less than the tenor, so that's another consideration, especially for younger students. That actually can be a pretty big factor. Another big factor in deciding whether you're going to play alto or tenor when you're just starting is the price. Alto saxophones cost less than tenor saxophones, and the price difference can be pretty significant. So for a Yamaha student model saxophone, that can be about $1,200 for the student model, and a tenor saxophone of the most entry-level model you can get is going to be about $3,000. So there's a pretty big price difference. Now again, if you're just dying to play tenor and you want to start on tenor, that's okay too, especially for adult players. Okay, now let's get into which specific saxophone you could consider purchasing if you are a beginner. Now, this list isn't necessarily a definitive list, and things are changing all the time, so we'll be sure to link to any updated information we have on our recommendations in the description below. So our recommendation for the best budget student model saxophones for beginners, the Jean Paul student model. And they do make an alto and a tenor version. These instruments are the most budget friendly in the sense that they cost a lot less and the quality is surprisingly good considering the price point. So when it comes to buying cheap saxophones, the Jean Paul brand is really the only cheap or budget option that we recommend at this time. So the Jean Paul student model alto saxophone currently runs for about $599. And the Jean Paul tenor saxophone student model currently runs for about $850. If you're looking to spend a little bit more and get a name brand saxophone that might last you a little bit longer in your playing career, then we recommend the Yamaha 280. So for alto sax, that's Yamaha Alto Sax 280, which they abbreviate as YAS 280. And it actually can carry you pretty far in your playing. I've heard a number of professionals even say like they feel good playing on that even later on in their career. So that's a student model that will possibly carry you a bit farther than the budget option. At this time, the YAS 280 is running at about $1,200 as of late 2022. For tenor saxophone, if you're looking to get a name brand that again might last you a bit longer than the budget option, we recommend a Yamaha student model as well, except this model is the 26. That's the student model that Yamaha makes for tenor saxophone. So YTS, Yamaha Tenor Sax 26. And that's going to run you about $3,100 as of late 2022. Now consider some possible financing options. Our buying guide will be the most up-to-date log of some different financing options that might be out there. We try to keep an eye out for different retailers that are offering that. So check out our buying guide in the description if you want to see more on that. So aside from the price differences between our budget recommendation and our name brand recommendation, what are the other differences? How do you know whether you should just go ahead with the budget option to get started or whether you should invest in the name brand, the Yamaha models that we recommended? Well, some of the differences between the two will be that you're more likely to be able to use the name brand or the Yamaha models for longer. So they're more likely to be able to carry you farther in your playing without you wanting to upgrade. You might find that you outgrow other student models more quickly, potentially. So that's one possibility, although it certainly varies by player. Another difference is the resale value. So a Yamaha or any other, name brand like Selmer is going to resell better. So that's something to keep in mind, that if you do want to upgrade later from a student model, it will be easier and you'll recoup more of your investment when you have a Yamaha or other name brand. Let's also talk about why it's important to start on a good saxophone or a good quality saxophone. The reason for that is simply it's really difficult to learn to play a bad instrument. So you're just going to be making it harder for yourself if you purchase kind of a cheap knockoff that is not of good quality. It's just going to be harder to learn. You're going to be butting up against obstacles that don't really need to be there. So we definitely recommend sticking with one of these recommendations or other name brands that you might see. Again, that Jean Paul student model recommendation is a really great sweet spot where you can kind of go with a budget-friendly option a bit more safely and trust in it more. So those are our recommendations for a budget-friendly option and a name brand option for beginning saxophone players. Our buying guide, which is linked in the description, will have the most up-to-date recommendations on all saxophone gear and saxophones as well. And like I said, we'll try to update the description with any other call-outs on some potentially new recommendations we may have as far as saxophones are concerned. Happy playing!